And I just want you to know, hey, if you have any questions, feel free. Ask anything you like regarding technical analysis, fundamental analysis. Maybe there's a particular currency pair, that you'd like to take a look at. And we can look at the chart. We could look at the fundamentals. We could talk about risk management. It's really up to you. So let's give it a shot. Okay. So welcome back to FX Street Live webinars. And I'm Ed Ponsi. I'm here with you again. This is our second 30-minute session of the day. It's always a pleasure to be with you here on FX Street. No place I'd rather be. And let's get now. The funny thing is, we're getting word from a lot of opinions on oil. OPEC is trimming its demand forecast for crude oil due to more supply from non-OPEC countries, like the US and Canada. And we're looking at US, Canada right now, interestingly enough. Coincidence, right? I think not. So OPEC is reducing their forecast for demand because they're saying, hey, there's more supply coming from the US, Canada, and other places that are not OPEC, not part of OPEC. OPEC, of course, was the cartel, mostly of Middle Eastern countries that really controlled oil for a long time and really controlled oil prices for a long time. But then as production increased outside of those countries, they became less and less powerful. Saudi Arabia probably being, the biggest, the most important OPEC member, obviously, as they are the number 2 producer of oil now, right? All right, let's take a peek. Let's take a peek at what's going on here. First of all, yesterday we talked about, I talked about buying dollar CAD for a short-term trade. And did it work out or not? It depends how long you held it, right? It looks like it peaks at about 9:30 and then it just goes into reverse. So, we were talking about it down here and it went up and then it went back down and it went way down and now it's come all the way back up. And I've been saying that I felt that oil was overdone at this point. And you can see here that that dollar Canada has popped a little bit. And I felt that the price of oil was a bit overdone, and I felt that dollar Canada would come back up because of that. And if you look at the daily chart, the trend for oil is still up, and you see that green candle kind of agreeing with me today. Although I guess you would have to say, well, Ed, you weren't really expecting that big red candle yesterday, now were you? And you would be right. I really wasn't. I thought the reversal was going to happen yesterday, but we're getting it now. Right, and I think that OPEC statement that I just read to you has something to do with it. Here comes oil, and again, another doji on oil so far today, but yesterday's candle also looked like a doji, and look what happened. It's a big green candle today. So, I was wrong about oil yesterday, but so far it has not hurt me with dollar Canada. I'm right where I was. So, oil continues to move higher, however, and so I may have been a little bit early on my prediction that oil would reverse. Oil's breaking out like mad. Apparently. Well, let's get to let me just fix this chart up for you a little bit. There we go. There you can really see the breakout right there. Very significant breakout in oil. I still think that this might be overdone. We know there's a lot of uncertainty regarding the situation in Saudi Arabia. It's sort of a Game of Thrones type situation going on over there. I don't really know what's happening over there. Don't know. Honestly, don't know. But you know, it's and I think that's really what. And you also have price cuts. OPEC has cut has it has cut production rather, and that's boosting prices here, and that's also helping. But that's a huge breakout in oil. Look at that pattern. That 55 number was a resistance area that just couldn't be broken. That's a huge break, and really that should push dollar Canada lower. It really should, but I don't know if it's going to. Technically speaking, you know, you're looking at this and you're saying dollar Canada should be going lower if oil is breaking out like this, but it's really not. And dollar Canada is in fact big green candle today, meaning Canadian dollar is getting weaker despite this breakout. And this trend says Canadian dollar should get weaker. So my feeling is that this is a short-term anomaly in Saudi Arabia. It's not going to control the price of oil for a long time. It's creating short-term anxiety, and that's helping to create this breakout. But it's not necessarily going to continue to push oil. People will calm down and eventually relax a little bit, and that's going to be it. And then they'll settle down, and I think it'll fall back below 55. And I think we'll, you know, and when that happens, I think Canadian dollar is back at 129. You know, that's my call on this. So right now, Canadian dollar is pretty much right where it was yesterday when we talked about this. It shot down yesterday, and it's come back right now. If I look at this on the 60-minute, and again, this wasn't really a technical trade. This was just a situation where I felt that the markets were overreacting to what was happening in Saudi Arabia. And you look at that on the hourly, they just really took it down, and they really took it right back up. And it looks like to me like this is a crucial point right here. This is a crucial point. There's a lot of resistance right here on the hourly chart. You know, if you drop a line right here, right, we could be at a key inflection point right here, technically. But this was not something I bought for technical reasons. I bought it for, I think it was an emotional trade. I think not on my part. I think the rise in oil is an emotional trade, and I think that eventually the market comes back to its senses. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but if I'm wrong, I just take a loss and move on. I guarantee you I will not take a big loss. It'll be a small loss. I never take big losses. So, you know, but that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, just about everything we do on here is based on a chart. But if I think something's mispriced, I will take a whack at it, and that's what I see here. I think oil might be mispriced right now. Everyone's very excited about Saudi Arabia, and I think there's a mispricing going on. They'll come back. It'll come down, I think. I could be wrong, but I think it'll come back down. Okay, let's move on from this. 127 round number, and also 50% retrace to the previous move up. Well, I think we did pull back to 127 exactly. Very good call there from Abdul Ahmed. Look at that round number. It's right on the button, isn't it? Right. And if I look at the Fibonacci here, from high to low, it's not quite a 50% retrace of this move, but it's very close. So I see where you're coming from, and that, you know, that's a legitimate point. You know, but yeah, the 120, somebody bought the heck out of this at 127. There's no question about that. Somebody was definitely looking at that round number. No question about it. Okay. All right, let's get out of there. All right, so I'm still in there, and right now it's looking a lot better. We'll see. So just to update you on that, Saudi Arabia says this crackdown is just beginning, blah, 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 but who knows? Who knows? I'll be very interested to see the figures on the oil inventories. To me, are much more important. Everybody's being very emotional. I'm saying show me the numbers. Show me the weekly crude inventories. We get one API figure is in 7 hours and 15 minutes. And then tomorrow, we're going to get the inventory numbers again from the Energy Information, the EIA, and that's coming out tomorrow. They're looking for a drop of 2.8 million barrels. So we'll see. Right. Last week's figure was very close to the estimate, and it created very little excitement in the market. But you know, it's always based on how close you are to the estimate. Last week was very close to the estimate, within 1 million barrels to the estimate. But we'll see what happens this week. It's always fun. Okay. So yeah, that's Canadian dollar. As far as New Zealand, right, today we've got the auction, some auction action here. I'm going to go to the 60-minute chart. Just a second, Richard. I'll pull that up. I'm just going to take a peek here at where is support and resistance on New Zealand. It looks like 40 pips up, 69.50. I'd be a seller. And it looks like about 35 pips down, 68.80, maybe 68.75. I'd be a buyer. And whoops, why do I care about that right now? It's because, darn it, because the auction. I cannot seem to put this line in place. So in other words, just generally speaking, right? Come here, you. Ed has never had this much trouble drawing a line in his life because he's just trying to put a line down really quick. There it goes. All right, so around 68.80, I'd be a buyer, and around 69.50, I'd be a seller. What's going on right now is the auction in New Zealand. And so you could see New Zealand dollar usually overreact. It's usually an overreaction. It's usually an overreaction where it'll pop up or down and then swing back around. And that's what I'm looking for. So if there's an overreaction, there should be an overreaction one way or another. It's not uncommon. So 69.50 short term, I'd be a seller, and 68.80 short term, I'd be a buyer. But big picture, there's a lot of support down here. Big picture, I think I'd prefer to be a buyer, just because, yeah, this is a downtrend. I'm going to say, yeah, the prevailing trend is down, but look at all the support here, and the trend just hit a brick wall down here, right? It's gone nowhere for several weeks, and look at all the support. So I think I'd prefer to be a buyer, you know, but I will sell if it comes up, you know, but I'd prefer to buy if it comes down. Because I think that this trend is in trouble because it ran into a brick wall, meaning this support area, this thicket of support that occurred in May and really lasted for most of May, I think is really the problem as far as New Zealand dollar is concerned. Okay. Moving on. So when do we hear from our friends in New Zealand? Let's go over to Google. So every 2 weeks, on Tuesday, right? We get the GDT auction, the Global Dairy Trade auction. And there's the result for 17 October. So that's how we know that they're not complete. They have not completed today's auction, because the most recent result is up there for several weeks ago. And they even have a little chart up here that give you a general idea of where prices have been heading. Prices have not been moving up, right? They've been pretty stagnant recently, right? There's the most recent results of the auction. And if you really want to dive into it, they give you all the different, right? The breakdown of the different. I know it seems a bit esoteric. They're breaking it down by product here, but we're not really concerned about that. We're really just concerned about the main result. I mean, if there was to be a huge jump in dairy prices, that would cause New Zealand dollar to jump, perhaps even gap intraday. We've seen that before. We've seen we've seen New Zealand dollar gap intraday based on the results of this auction. So let's see if there's, anything happens. Now, here we see the number of bidders participating is 165 out of a possible 554. We have 165. Now, what's interesting, fat is the most expensive item. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's I don't know if that means it's the most expensive item or if it's the one that has the most money being bid. In other words, the net amount being bid. Okay, don't know, honestly. I'm no expert on this, but yeah, it's pretty wild, right? So really, if 9% of your GDP is dairy products, and it is, people don't realize how important dairy is to New Zealand. It's 9% of GDP. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's huge. So really, it's like New Zealand is basically a big dairy farm. And so if there's a major change in dairy prices, that means the amount of money coming into New Zealand to purchase those products is going to change. And if the price of dairy goes up, more money flows into the country. And if the price of dairy goes down, then less money flows into the country. And the amount of money that flows into the country, the capital flow, has a tremendous impact on the value of the currency. Okay, so today's the day, gang. And so the market tends to overreact. So back to the chart, back to the 60-minute chart. The problem is we never know exactly when the auction will end. Now, why is that? It's because it's an auction. And, so imagine a bunch of people are bidding, and the bidding is going to go on until somebody wins. Well, what time does somebody win? I don't know. Nobody knows. Right? Nobody knows when it ends. And that's the problem. Okay? So, yeah, that's pretty funny. All right? Pretty odd. Richard asking about Bitcoin. We'll go to the Bitcoin chart next, which has been, I find myself fantasizing of what if I had bought Bitcoin when it was 250 $250, which really wasn't very long ago. You know, I could have just thrown 20,000 at it at the time. What would that be worth now? You know, how many million would that be worth right now? You know, would be nice. Let's pull it up. I'm going to go to index. But at the time, you know, you're thinking it could go to zero, right? It could have gone to zero, and it still could go to zero. Or it could go to a million. Looks like $BRTI. So here you go, $BRTI. And we're down to, well, we've lost 500 bucks from 7,600 to 7,100. And we'll make it a daily chart. So a red candle today after some dojis. This chart only goes back to May, unfortunately. Make it a 4-hour chart. See what it looks like. You know, that looks like a head and shoulders. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that sure looks like a head and shoulders on a 4-hour, but it's just a tiny little head and shoulders. Let me make it a 60-minute. You could probably define it a little bit better. You see, 60-minute head and shoulders don't scare me that much. Right? If it's a great big head and shoulders on the daily, that would bother me a little bit more. But can you see it? Left. There's left. Head. And right. There's a head and shoulders inside there. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to go down, but it could. And I do see 3 lower highs, high, lower high, lower high. So it could be getting ready to give traders a little bit of a discount. Just on the short term here. But you know, the funny thing was when Jamie Dimon said this thing was worthless, I think it was 4,500. And today, and now it hit 7,600 apparently earlier this week. I still think Jamie Dimon knocked it down so he could buy it, or so that his company could buy it. I'm convinced of that. Because that's how they trade stocks. Why wouldn't they trade Bitcoin the same way? There it is on the daily. On the daily, you can't even see that pattern. Right. But it looks to me like it's probably ready. It's probably way overbought. It's probably ready to pull back. You know, but yeah. People say it's a bubble, but you got to understand something, right? It's a global currency, and it's in limited supply. So they're only going to print 21 million Bitcoins. Try to imagine if there were only $21 million in the world. There are certainly people who individually have more than $21 million, correct? Well, the plan is to print only 21 million Bitcoins. Only 21 million. Get it? If there were only $21 million, how many euros would a dollar be worth? How many pounds would a dollar be worth? Remember, $21 million is not a lot of money. There are certainly people who make that much in a year. But all the Bitcoins in the world, there are only 21 million Bitcoins in the world, or there are only going to be 21 million Bitcoins when they reach maximum capacity. There are less than 21 million Bitcoins right now. So how can you really say that it's in a bubble? There are trillions and trillions of dollars in circulation. What if there were only 21 million of them? How much more would they be worth? How much more would each one be worth if there were only 21 million of them in the entire world? That's the way to look at it. There are, you know, how much money. Yeah, I don't know if Carlos is in the room, but he can certainly tell you there are players on the New York Yankees who are going to make more than $21 million next year. But what if there were only $21 million in the entire world? Now you get a feel. There's the opening bell for the New York Stock Exchange. Now you get a feel for the reason why it's going the way it is. Does that make it a bubble? I don't think it does. And remember, the US dollar is only the currency for one country. Well, not true. It is a global reserve currency, but officially, it's only the currency for a handful of countries. Bitcoin is a global currency. So it's for the entire world. You would only have 21 million of these. Fed probably prints $21 million a day. They probably print that many dollars every day. Depends on what you can do with Bitcoin. Well, you can exchange Bitcoin for dollars, right? So if you can exchange Bitcoin for dollars, then anything you can do with a dollar, you can do with a Bitcoin. Right? Because all you have to do is go to the ATM. Right? There are Bitcoin ATMs. Right? Have you ever seen these? Maybe you've even seen them. And if you do a Google map of where you live, I'll bet you'll find one not far from where you live. If the dollar is cheaper, why buy Bitcoin? I'm not sure the dollar is cheaper. If you added up in other words, what's the market cap of Bitcoin and what's the market cap of dollars? Do you understand what I mean by market cap? In other words, the market cap is the price of a dollar times the number of dollars. So the price of a dollar is $1 times the number of dollars. Then take the price of Bitcoin and multiply that by the number of Bitcoins and tell me which one's more expensive. I think the dollar's more expensive because there are trillions of dollars and there are only 21 million Bitcoins. I think the Bitcoin is cheaper. You see, that's what I'm trying to explain right now. Market cap, it's like stocks, right? It's like a stock. Let me explain. Here you go. We'll go Google Finance. Okay. Now, which stock is more expensive? Right? We have Apple, which is $175 a share today. Or we have Priceline, or we have Google, which is $1,050 a share. Which one's more expensive? Apple at 175 or Google at 1,050? Which one's more expensive? Come on, somebody answer. I can't stay with you all day. Take a guess. Yes, it's a trick question. Okay. Most people would say Google is more expensive because it's over $1,000 a share. But the way do you find out is market cap. It's the price of the stock times the number of shares outstanding. In other words, if I bought all the shares of Apple and I bought all the shares of Google, which one cost the most? Google Finance, AAPL, Apple. The answer is market cap. The market cap, if I buy all the shares of Apple, it's 894 billion. 894. So almost 900. Apple's, to buy all the shares of Apple is almost 900 billion. But to buy all the shares of Google, right? To buy all the shares of Google, which they call Alphabet now, is only 721 billion. So Apple is more expensive than Alphabet. Even though Apple, you see, people say, oh my God, Bitcoin's $7,000 and a dollar is only $1. Yeah, but if you bought all the dollars, it would cost a lot more than buying all the Bitcoins. Just like if you bought all the shares of Apple, it would cost, which is a $100 stock, that would cost more than buying all the shares of this $1,000 stock. The $1,000 stock is cheaper, right? Because if you bought every single share of Google, it costs less. That's the market cap. The market cap is less than Apple. Market cap, the total, look, a little definition. The total value, I made it. Market cap was is the total value. The total value of all the outstanding shares. Okay, so I think the thing to do is just buy all the Bitcoins. But I'm kicking myself because I didn't do it earlier. It could still go to zero, but it's not as expensive as people think, right? People say it's in a bubble. How can you say it's in a bubble? It's a currency, right? They're thinking of it like a stock. It's not a stock. It's a currency. All right, I'm out of here, gang. I'll talk to you Thursday. Everybody have a wonderful day. Take care now.